Hi, well, my name is Tom Landau, and thank you for showing up. And the evening should be very, I guess, eventful for not only you, but for the organization, because we're going through a point of growth where we're going to get some opinions and some involvement on your end. We have sponsors, we have people who paid for a complete amount of involvement for a year, like an bulk payment, prepayment. And these are some of the names we have. Calv IP, which is the organization here. Brightwave, the sponsor is right over there. And Yuri Apps, which is really PayPal, that's morphed into another business, which is a philanthropic organization to help people in need. GUI Enterprises, Al Escobar, works very much in import-export globally. He's very well versed in Spanish business. He teaches worldwide trade, and he's a professor at COU. And he could make it tonight. Roberts and Associates really early on helped me with their grant. They are our fundraising organization who apply for grants. She has 2 young kids. She lives in, beyond Simi Valley, and it's hard to get her tonight. But Carrie Roberts is a good person to know in terms of getting funding. And obviously Westlake Marketing, who helped develop this site, who's not here at all because they have other business to do tonight, and personal business. They really kind of driven the charge on who we are. And in a sense, this site is an example of a free site that anybody can make. And they knocked us out in literally a week and a half after discussion. And any of you could knock out your same site the same way. WIX is the program. It's a cloud-based program. I'm with Product Design Group, and my background is very similar to John Bonbulo, who is here, industrial design, but I work more in process engineering and manufacturing and marketing, where John also works heavily in physical product packaging and design and the look and feel, which I did somewhat at the beginning, but I came here from aerospace. I was brought here by Northrop Grumman. And like a lot of people, a lot of engineering talent, a lot of skills in the area, much underutilized and many out of work. And early retirement isn't the game plan for somebody who's still got his brain power. So the reason we're here tonight is to learn how to innovate. And Kehoe started, I first met a couple of years ago in a quality control seminar where he was presenting knowledge transfer, which big companies are very much involved in terms of how does the company keep that information if people retire, if people leave, how do they build on it? And of course, Rockwell is an extraordinary example of that, of having the massive skill to do what they did with the space effort and design of engines, things that explode, things that go boom. I mean, if anything, in the proper fashion, I would say. Yeah, the world epicenter of that, really, right in our backyard in Woodland Hills. And Kehoe will give us a little background on his process or his knowledge of innovation in a workshop. And then after, we'll have a similar workshop based on how do we improve Clean Technology Council and how do we get people involved and participate in its growth, which means you and others like you. So that's the way we'll start. Thank you, Kehoe.
Thank you. And Mark, sure. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Divergent process. And then, if you put a lot of effort into a divergent process, along the way, and you will see some of the examples when I talk about my innovation workshop, is some of the selection and validation comes over. No, not as smart as crowd, right? So we heard the term wisdom of crowd. So whenever we need to do innovate, this is what we do. Let's have a brainstorming session. How many of you experienced brainstorming session in your career? Team members to brainstorm, right? And then you realize, hey, we need some outside experts. So you start bringing outside experts. Why do you do that?
Fresh ideas.
Yeah, no baggage.
Outside your knowledge base, right? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here's your brainstorming session, limited. And what if we could go beyond the participant's experience and not just twice or tenfold, but like 100 times, 1,000 times? Wouldn't it be nice? Yes?
Yes.
And gosh,
That'd be great.
I know it's a long day, it's the middle of the week and kind of late, but come on, we need some more energy here.
You want us to brainstorm?
No, I want you to have energy. And I call this knowledge base. And they're unlimited knowledge base that are available to us. Now I'll talk a little bit about knowledge base and how we could create our own and how to tap into others. So, have you heard the term community of practice?
No.
Good. Collaboration?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now what's that?
Social networking?
Definitely.
There are big tools, a big name for social networking these days.
Facebook.
I have 3 sons. My youngest one, he was in high school, now he's in college. When he was in high school, he went to some kind of high school gatherings, and he met brand new friends, right? So I asked him, so did you get their emails? He goes, no, we just Facebook each other. I go, wow. And this long time ago, I went to one of these technical conferences, and as we are departing, we were saying, in old days we said, we'll call you, right? But he said, I'll email you, and kind of dawned on me, he would email me, right? That's a whole new paradigm. Now, they don't even do email, they just do, I'll Facebook you.
They don't even wait for that. You use Twitter and you're talking about it with people that are there and people that couldn't be there.
Twitter for the professionals. The high school kids and college kids still, yeah.
Yeah.
Lessons learned database and best practices. Technical companies, they all have this. From my experience, there's one organization that does the best job of capturing lessons learned. And you all know the company, called NASA. So at one of these conferences, the Johnson Space Center, director of Johnson came and he goes, yeah, we do a real good job of capturing lessons, but we do a horrible job of learning from those lessons. Right? And search engine. There are many different kinds of search engines. What's the most popular search engine people use these days? Google. Still, Google is based on so-called keyword search. So if you want to combine some of those words, multiple words, but not just combine it, but have some context to the search, Google will do a terrible job of getting you a right hit. And there are some smart search engines that will get you that based on either natural language format or semantic technology. So there are many other search engines. Expert locator, expertise network. Heard about these? Yeah? Do you know what these are?
No.
Thank you. So at the beginning, we were asked to create expert locator, and we said, oh, that's easy. Create a yellow page, right? So list a bunch of different fields, and I have a mechanical engineering background, so I said, mechanical, thermal, heat transfer expert, and he was on his phone number. Great. So just create yellow page like that. Turns out, when someone has even the heat transfer question very specific to certain programs, I couldn't answer. So I had to report to someone else, and soon we realized just simple yellow page would not work. Plus, who defines who's the expert, right? So we went to an expertise network. It's just a series of experiences you create. It's like a LinkedIn profiles, right? You list all your experiences, and then someone has questions about certain things. The smart search engine will go through all your profiles and, hey, Kyo has certain experience on the topic. You may want to ask Kyo. Document management system.
Yes.
Mark, you're big into this, right?
No,
Lawyers?
Not really. We actually we're independent. We have an automated filing system where all of our email gets filed so we don't print things out. It automatically goes to hard drives, which is great. And most of our work is done in PDF format with the U.S. government agencies and also with our foreign associates. As far as document management systems are usually used by bigger entities. We're only about 13, 14 people.
Yeah.
So the bigger entities will have these massive check-in and check-out systems and all that, and they also are very expensive. So we haven't seen the need to do that yet.
So I was talking at this forum, and a bunch of IT folks were there. And I know the organizations that they came from, they all had this huge document management systems. They pay like millions of dollars to install and deploy. So I asked them, what's the most dire needs that you have? And they all say, most of them say, I cannot find the document that I'm looking for.
Yeah,
And
I know that feeling.
we like to create new terminology. The enterprise content management system is a little more advanced than a document management system. The word content includes not just a document, but videotapes, audio tapes, all the other pictures, drawings, and so forth. So these are, that's a big terminology these days. Knowledge for innovation. How many of you heard this? Where did you hear that?
JPL.
JPL? Gene Home?
No, Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
I know Gene Home was the KM colleague over there at JPL. But you didn't hear that from her?
No.
Okay. I thought I created this knowledge.
Maybe it got out.
More famous
I need to talk to you, Mark.
We signed it out. Got a little TM on fire.
So I'll talk what I mean by knowledge for innovation or knowledge-driven innovation. And these are all parts of knowledge management. So if you haven't heard knowledge management, all these are parts of it. One way or the other, you already know what KM is. So knowledge management, all those terms are nothing more than to define the way to effectively transfer knowledge from one person to another person. That's all it is. Knowledge shared, knowledge transfer. At PWR, Private Rocketdyne, when we developed this KM system, we categorized those transactions into these 4 quadrants. People-to-people transaction, I call this collaboration, and there are many tools. You were telling me about you are spending 50% of your time mentoring your buyer, right? So mentoring is the biggest, most effective tool for collaboration. There are many other forms, like this type of forum, seminars, there are group mentoring and so forth. The reason this is most popular is because we define knowledge into 2. The one is called explicit knowledge and the other one is tacit knowledge. You heard about these terms? The explicit is whatever you could put your hands on. So whether it's a document or electronic document, whatever you could put your hands on, we call that explicit knowledge. The other knowledge that you cannot put your hands on, something in your brain, that's called tacit knowledge. And the researchers say 80% of knowledge is still in your brain, not captured. So only 20% are captured. So you could kind of guess that by tackling the 80% of knowledge is most important thing.
Yeah, Keel, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
In with regards to the fact that, like you said, 80% of knowledge is something that some individual has between their ears, in essence. And in this day and age of people moving from company to company, and company loyalty being what it is, and people's loyalty to their companies being what it is, does it make sense for an individual to want to essentially give up that trademark of information that they have, that protected, that intellectual property?
So my response is, even if individual wants to download everything, that person can only do 20% of his knowledge.
Okay.
Even if the organization forces a person to download, we don't have technology to do it. Unless, how many of you saw a movie called Paycheck? What's his name?
Ben Affleck.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Ben Affleck?
Yeah,
Right.
Ben Affleck, yeah.
I remember that
Paycheck.
movie.
In that movie, this guy works on a project, and then after he's done, what do? They tap into your brain cell and download. So unless we have that technology,
And then they erase it from him, so he didn't remember what he had done.
right.
Yeah.
Maybe that technology is available somewhere, but as far as I know, we
Not
don't
yet.
have that technology, and therefore most we could do by statistic, 20% is all we could do.
Okay.
Here, people to media-based transfer, I call it capturing, because you kind of download and, like I said, you can only do 20%. Some tools under here are, of course, these technical documentation, you write them, videotaping, audio taping, whatever you do, but converting your tacit into explicit. Here, the media-based to people transfer, I call this learning and training. You are the expert on learning and training. We use the same tools. So whatever the tools that we capture, over here, people are accessing those things to learn. So for a while, e-learning or computer-based training was a big thing. So instead of having instructor-led classes, they create the computer-based training. And then that way employees can access the CBT courses 24/7, and then they learn from it. Am I going too fast?
No.
Okay, so I call this learning and training. Finally here, the media-based to media-based transfer is where the things that I talked about, document management system, enterprise content management, the smart search engine, all those things play a role in here to create so-called the best practices. So when big organizations, when they create procedures or manuals, whatever, they not only rely on experts to write them, but those experts tap into all those captured knowledge and create work instructions and so forth. One good example of a lessons learned database, this was some time ago. Ford was recognized as the best practice in utilizing lessons learned. What they have done is they asked all their factories, numerous factories throughout the world, they said, thou shalt create one lesson per month. So they all work on and create one lesson per month, and they put into a lesson learned database. And then some group of judges, they go through and they go, oh, this month, Plan A produced the best lessons, and therefore, all the other plans copy this and try to do this. So it's more of a top-down system, but somehow back then it worked, so they were recognized as a #1. But this is really a good one. I talked about smart search engines. The particular search engine that we used is based on semantic search engine. And some of that I'll share for innovation process as well. When you query something, like I said, I have the heat transfer background, so how do I keep my electronics cool, right? So if I put that into Google, Google will give me all the hits about electronics and cool and what else, keep, and you know, all those words. But this search engine will understand my action is cool. I want to keep something cool. My object is electronics. So it will find all the subjects that will do my action and objects. It will say water keeps electronics cool, air keeps electronics cool. So it will find all those results. Very fascinating advanced results. So there are those tools available. So I talked about creating a knowledge base. And throughout those transactions, what you're doing is, in a way, you're creating your own knowledge base. And if your organization is a smart organization, that you want to be a learning organization, because every time you do something, you create knowledge. And you want to learn from that knowledge, so you learn from it. And I call this, there are learning before, learning during, and learning after. What learning before is, let's say you want to start a brand new program. So even before you start a brand new program, you find out and talk to people who worked on similar programs, and then try to get all the lessons. Not just on hows, but real war stories, right? You know what I mean by war stories? So one of the tools we used was a group mentoring, and there was this program manager. So all young program managers had session with this real expert program manager. And it was a very structured group mentoring process. And during the session, the mentor will say, no, the mentees will ask him lots of questions. And mentor will say, that's how the book says what you're supposed to do. But in real life, right, the war story starts coming out. So learning before is very critical. And not many organizations put effort into this stage. Learning during, many companies do a good job. They do lots of good documents and so forth. Learning after, again, very few do a good job, especially like a government contractor like my previous company. Government shuts down funding without any notice, right? One morning you come to work and the program manager says, you know what? NASA told us to cut this funding, so thou shalt stop working on this project. They don't give us time to wrap up the program and document all the things. Yeah.
Learning before, how would you structure that in the startup as compared to an ongoing business?
Startup as a company?
Yes.
So there's something called graveyard reviews. You heard about graveyard reviews,
I
right?
haven't. Just now I have from you.
Oh, okay.
Sounds good.
So Mark, another terminology there.
Write these down.
So if your company is a brand new company, that you don't have all the resources within, so you have to go outside. So there's going to be some effort and money involved, but it's really good to find out who has worked on something that you're going to start, maybe 5 to 10 people, and have them in one room like this, and shoot all kinds of questions, and get their advice. And whether you actually need all those or not, that's that's another point. But it's really good to capture all those things. The another thing we realized, we have millions of paper documents. We are Rocketdyne was a 50-year-old company. Back then we did not have computers, so lots of paper documents. We kept all those papers just in case. One example, we had a library who had all the titles of all the technical documents. And these 2 engineers came in and they were just browsing through, and they picked one document, like a 10 or 20 pages document. And they go, wow, this is it. So we asked them, what did you find? And they were tasked conduct this testing, $250,000 testing, and looking at this document, everything was in there that they didn't have to do a testing. So they saved $250,000 right there. So there are many examples like this. So, and another example is we had an incident where program needs to shut down, and then after 5 years, it's going to be picked up. So the current managers are defining these are the key steps that we need to capture, and they were doing all the video capturing and so forth. And then 5 years from now, we'll pick up these things, and we asked them, are they the real key process that you want to capture? And they were, yeah, sure. So we asked them, keep in mind, 5 years from now, none of you will be working on this program, but a bunch of new folks. So put the new person's perspective and find out what they need to learn, and they change about half of the processes. So don't just look at from my perspective to define, yeah, this is good, this is bad, we're going to need this, we know we're not going to need this. We never know what we need in the future. So just in case, keep everything. Questions? So, how much time?
I actually have a question. My experience has been different generations of people learn in different ways. The Generation X learned differently than we did. How do you see this changing? Because often the people that are going to come in later to pick up what you did are of a different generation and may not even learn the same way that we did.
True, very true. So here, all I'm focusing are the things that need to be done. Actual tools may be different. We did a little study on difference between Gen X and baby boomers. The baby boomers, when they have questions, they get up and walk up to a next office. Hey, so and so, I have this question and so forth. Gen X, they either email or text. It's not that they are lazy, but they are so used to doing those things rather than a personal conversation. So we need to do a little more research on how Gen X will best learn from certain things. But the concept is we need to capture something so that they could pick up. Another thing we need to keep in mind is there was a video series called Did You Know? How many of you seen Did You Know? In that it says these are technical knowledge. Most technical knowledge will be obsolete after 2 years. So if you go into a technical university and you learn, and by the time you graduate, most of them will be obsolete. So don't focus on the technical content itself, but they focus on ability to get info and learn from it. Make sense? Okay. So hopefully what I'll be talking about for innovation will be that, teach you the process, not so much on the hows. So the innovation technique that I want to share with you is called TRIZ, and I call it knowledge-based innovation. How many of you think this is real?
What, the triangle?
Spatial relationships are real.
How many of you think you could make one of these? Pretty neat, huh? Yeah, I copied this from the author of TRIZ. So let's talk about think outside the box. Are we ready to think outside the box?
Sure. Yeah.
No,
So-
we think we are.
Do you know where this term think outside the box came from?
U-Haul?
You guys are all ready to think outside the box and you don't even know where the term came from? Seriously. Trademark on it? I did not invent this. It was like early 1900 or 1950s. Some professor from Stanford created this term.
Is it the one where you draw the lines from, no, I guess it's not the box.
Yes, yes,
Is it?
yes.
Oh,
It does.
Well done.
Yeah. See, Jolene and I go back, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's seen this show.
Yeah, and he's gonna pay me after.
So, how many of you know the answer?
What am I trying to do?
Oh, I'm sorry. This 9 problem is so popular that I assume everyone knew. Okay, here's the problem. Here's the instruction. You need to connect all 9 dots with 4 straight lines without lifting your pen or pencil.
Want them to try it?
Huh?
Want them to try it?
Yeah. Try it.
Go on, try it.
I'll give you 30 seconds and try it.
It's harder than you think.
Or easier than you think.
Once you know, it's easier.
Yeah. So typically they start with top dot, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this middle one is left open, and they go, okay, let's try it. 1, let's connect middle one first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this one's open. And professor goes, think outside the box. And they go, what do you mean outside the box? And professor goes, when you draw a line, go outside the box.
Right.
That's it.
So here, going outside the box, and a lot of people feel uncomfortable with it, right?
Well, you're assuming the rules. You're assuming the rule is that you can't go outside the box.
Exactly.
This is exactly the point, obviously. Is that
There's a book titled 1001 Ways to Connect 9 Dots. Okay, another, for those who like words, here. In the following line of letters, cross out 6 letters so that the remaining letters, without altering their sequence, will spell a familiar English word. Cross out 6 letters.
start with the X.
I didn't show this to you, Jolene.
Oh, no.
I just got this last year, so. Anyone? Again, think outside the box, or another word, paradigm. Give up? Give up?
Yes.
Yeah? So this way, that way. Key is this here, 6 letters. So you cross out SIXLETTERS. So when we say think outside the box, this is kind of thinking we're expecting, not this or this. That's a very kind of obvious. So we talk about paradigm shift quite a bit,
There you
right?
go.
Yeah? Everybody heard about paradigm shift?
Yes.
Okay, now pay attention. What did you see first?
Saw the face first.
So the
How many of you saw face?
Yeah.
How many of you saw Eskimo first? Oh. Eskimo, what Eskimo? That tells you your paradigm, right? If you saw face first, then you're very people-oriented. If you saw Eskimo first, you're very logical and you see a big picture. Kind of makes sense?
Did anyone see the Eskimo first?
Huh?
Yes.
Did anyone see the Eskimo before they saw the face?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
Yeah. Same thing, next one, pay attention.
I see
So,
that.
how many of you saw old lady first?
Definitely.
3, 4, 5, and how many of you saw young lady?
Young lady with the feather?
Yeah.
More.
So here again, your paradigm is always with a young lady versus old lady. No one's laughing. So it's really critical to come out of your own paradigm. And during my actual workshop, I bring a hands-on exercise that will really tell you to change your paradigm. But here I really don't have time to do that. Here's a real good example, and I was amazed by this. Hot summer, and if there's a one fruit you want to have, what the fruit is it?
Watermelon.
There you go, watermelon. Watermelon is good, but in order to have it cool, there's an issue with it. What kind of problem do you have with
Too big to fit in the refrigerator.
Yeah, too big. The storage issue, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. What if?
That's so weird.
Easier to
They call them in boxes.
No, I
Maybe
understand.
much easier.
Watermelon's on the inside. Not up on the inside.
Yeah, this is a real watermelon.
Have all the waste.
You're right. They create a plastic box. So when watermelon grows a little bit, then you put the plastic box around it.
Mhm.
These you probably don't want to eat this. This is from Japan. So nothing against Japan, but after the incident.
Glow in the dark watermelon.
So this is type of thing that I guess that Tom, you and Mark want you to have tonight to help CTC to expand. So back to a knowledge-based innovation called TRIZ. I call this knowledge-based because it is based on knowledge-based creativity and innovation. Very systematic and predictable. The solutions are not predictable, but the way people generate ideas are very predictable using the system. And also, it applies to right-brain people as well as left-brain people. How many of you consider yourselves to be right-brain people? Or do you even know what I meant by right-brain people?
You're always right.
Very good.
Tell it to my wife.
Very left brain of them.
Yeah, the right-brain people are very the artists, musicians, very creative people are called right-brain. And then engineers, typically, scientists, those are very logical and left-brain people. But this technique works for both right-brain and left-brain people. So what is TRIZ? Created by this gentleman here, Henrik Altschuler. He was a Navy officer working in Russian patent office. And his research began in 1940s and findings from 200,000 patents. And Mark will go, how do you look at 200,000 patents? The Russian patents are not like US patents, it's just one-page summary. So, and then since then, the people who use TRIZ around the world looked at their own research, combined over 3 million patents were researched, and they all confirmed Altschuler's finding. So what are his findings? Problems and solutions are repeated across industry and sciences. Agree? And there's something called patterns of technical evolutions are also repeated. And third, the best innovation comes from outside the field where the original problems were developed. And even Einstein said that, or Dr. Denning also said that. You can never fix a problem within your own system. You can only fix it from outside. So these are three findings. And this TRIZ technique is based on these three findings. And this is how it works. You have your own problem, whatever the problem is, right? In TRIZ, we convert your own problem into TRIZ general problem, and there's a ways to do that. And then we apply all these knowledge base, and within TRIZ there are several different tools, 40 principles, scientific effect, evolution-based predictions, and some other tools that briefly talk about tonight. So all these are nothing but knowledge base. Especially these 40 principles are based on patterns. So you tap into huge knowledge base and find a general solution, and then you convert that into your own solution. So typically, without TRIZ, if you have mechanical problem, then our tendency is to try to find mechanical solution to your problem. But we all know that some of the solutions come from different field, like mining field. You know, to protect the miners, use shield, right? And the technology used in medical field to protect your blood, what do you call it? Veins. So we see lots of examples about, you know, the technology or solutions used in another field being applied to your field. Make sense?
Yes.
So as an example, there's 40 inventive principles, and the Altshuler found out from his 200,000 patent research that there are 40 principles that are applied to all his findings. And so he kind of summarized like this. Few examples would be example 1, principle number 1, segmentation. Bicycle saddles.
That looks really uncomfortable.
Certainly we don't want to have a malfunction.
So you've seen one solid piece, and then evolution was the narrower, and then have you seen two-piece saddles?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a more advanced version of it, and it's dynamic. So as you move, it moves with you.
Looks like you're speared on it.
Skewer.
I'm not sure I'm open-minded about that, see.
You guys are having so much fun with this. Universality.
Couldn't hurt my
Here's a good one. Color change. Another application is baby spoons. So if temperature is too hot, the baby spoon color change, the mother will know, oh, this is too hot for my baby.
That's smart.
Yeah. So these are examples of principles. Now, the way we use these principles, once you convert your own problem into choose general problem, then you go through all these 40 principles and use them as a prompter to generate ideas. But 40 is way too much, right? So, you see a contradiction in this picture? Right? So Altshuler also created a technique called contradiction matrix. And what it is typically when we have certain thing improving, then there's always some other things that are decreasing, and we tend to find this optimum point, right? And we call this trade-off. Altshuler says, no more trade-off, just eliminate contradictions. How do we do that? When I began teaching this technique to employees, there was my partner who was about 6'2", 6'4", and 240 pounds, a big guy. So this is the example that I use. There's a wooden table, and this is my partner, and he likes to dance, show off his dance skills. So sometimes we'll ask him to stand on top of this table and dance, and there's an issue.
Called gravity.
Right? So we need something like this him to safely go on and dance. But then there's a contradiction here between these two. Weight versus strength. So for him to stand on and dance, we need to make it very strong, but then it gets very heavy, and we lose the portability of the table. So there's a contradiction. And typically we do a trade-off. So what's the optimum weight and strength, and we just come at the compromise points. But Altshuler says, no. Create this contradiction matrix, and it looks like a lot of numbers, right? 40 inventive principles and 30, the contradiction matrix has 39 features. But once you get to start using it, it's really straightforward. So this contradiction matrix consists of these 39 features, the columns and rows. And what you need to do is find the contradiction, in this case strength. You want to improve strength, but then weight of stationary object gets a problem. So you find intersection, and there are 4 numbers. And Altshuler created this table based on his pattern research, and found out when there is a strength and weight issue, he found these 4 principles were used most. So let's take a look. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're all smart people. So these 4 numbers are principal numbers. So when issue deals with the strength and weight, look at these 4 principles. So principle number 40, composite material. So don't use a wooden table, just get a composite table, which is much stronger. So that gives you a very predictable but straightforward answer. Second number is 26, copying. And you all know by adding more legs under the table it makes it stronger. So copy the leg and put it under. The third number was 27, cheap short-living object. So as long as my partner can survive, let him dance out and break the table, and then replace it with another cheap table. Not best solution, but that's what it is. And the last number was number 1, segmentation. So it's similar to by adding more legs. So get a smaller table and put it into a larger table and makes it stronger. So the way the contradiction matrix works is, once you identify contradictions, you find intersections, and it will tell you to look at certain principles, and you go through principles and generate ideas. Make sense? That's good. Mm-hmm. Okay. So based on this technique, I created a 2-day workshop. So what do you think what this guy is doing?
Brain dump.
Brain dump.
Brain dump, yeah, and exactly that's what it is. Brain dump, or I call it brain drain. So beginning of workshop, and this workshop is focused on certain problems. So we just let participants know, hey, when you come into this 2-day workshop, we're going to work on this problem. So they all kind of expect the problem, and they come in with their own ideas. So brain dump, we ask all the participants to write down all the ideas about this problem. So they write, and typical workshop is about 15 people, and that's kind of optimal if we have more than too much. So we typically create about 200, 250 ideas during this. And this is based on their own experiences, participants' experience. And then I go through this, the think outside the box training, and then I do a little hands-on exercise, and then ask them to generate new set of ideas based on think outside the box, and they generate about 100 more. And here I teach 6 thinking as really briefly. the reason I do that is because this black hat here. Black hat is when someone says something, then you think about negative aspect of it, which is good, useful at the end, but not during when you're generating ideas. So the company, this was a long time ago, our president called all the senior executives and he goes, our company needs to be innovative. We cannot survive. I need you to be very innovative and give me some good ideas. One executive was his hand and he goes, yeah, how about this? And president goes, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Any other good ideas? Yeah. So that's the role of black hat. So I go through a brief 6 hat and ask participants not to wear any other hat other than green hat. Green hat is the idea generation hat. You saw this, your favorite. So I go through the overview of TRIZ, and then I go through a different tool training. And as I introduce different tools, we go through exercise and people generate ideas based on their tool. And this is the S. Oh. It's called SAO, but the subject, action, object, but within TRIZ, this action shows up in form of functions. And it's kind of complicated. Anyway, using a semantic, and as I explained earlier, focusing on the action and object, you try to find subject, and that's what we are doing here. A very powerful tool. And after the training, we also generate ideas based on that. And then there's something called technical evolutions. Like a cell phone. How many of you remember the first generation cell phone? How big was it?
And the other things from the drum.
Yeah, so the very first one you had the hand part and then the battery part, right?
Yeah, you had with a strap that you wore over your shoulder.
That's right. And then got more advanced to this huge one, right?
Yeah, the big Motorola.
Yeah. And I had one of those and I had to pay $500. This was what?
That's cheap.
20 years ago? And I still have it at
25
home.
years ago?
And then became smaller, and then so still it was all one piece. And then what was the next one? Foldable. Right. And then there's a next evolution, which is kind of flexible one. We haven't seen flexible one. But Japanese actually made one. Was it like a pen? Right. So Japanese, this was like 10, 15 years ago. Made a cell phone like this, and all you're doing is just bring out film that has a keypad on or number pad on it, and that's your cell phone. But it didn't make to market because
Too expensive.
Yeah, too expensive. The profitability wasn't there. So there are certain, in everything we do, there are certain technical evolution involved with it if you look at it carefully. And this is what it, oops, and this is what it is. But not all products go through every single evolution stage because of a profitability. Another tool called resource, and I'll give you two examples of a resource at the end. Utilizing resources that we already have, and a lot of times we don't even know they exist. And then at the end of the workshop, we go through what I call harvesting. So gather all your ideas and you kind of group them together as to something we could tackle immediately, something we need a little more research to implement, and then something far out technology. And as I said earlier, with the brain dump, we generate about 2 to 250 ideas. with the outside think outside the box concept, they generate another 100 or so. And then through these training, they generate about 100 more. But the quality of those solutions are far greater than what they came in with. So I carry this everywhere I go, and I'm not sure, Jordan, if you remember this or not.
Not the detail, but I remember seeing it.
Okay. So when we started deploying knowledge management, our employees were saying, I know what data management is and I know what information management is, but I don't know what knowledge management is. So that's why I create this chart. But there's more to it than knowledge. Within knowledge, there's understanding and wisdom. The purpose of this chart is not to explain the definitions, but to tell you why we need to do certain things. Russell Acuff, how many of you heard his name? Hey, Tom. He's a system thinker who just passed away 2 years ago. He celebrated 90th birthday, and then a couple months later he passed away. He called everything from data to understanding deal with efficiency on hows. But only wisdom deals with effectiveness or purpose, why you're doing certain things. Peter Drucker, you all know who Peter Drucker is, right? Sure. The great mind of this century. He calls efficiency or hows doing things right. The only effectiveness or wisdom doing the right thing. And you all know the huge difference between these two, right? So let me ask you this. If you do wrong thing right, what happens?
Well,
Bad,
I guess you're efficiently evil.
Oh, you remember? Huh?
I guess.
Yeah,
I said you're efficiently evil.
Russell created his own word called wronger. So if you do wrong thing right, you become wronger. If you do wrong thing right very efficiently, then you become wronger very fast. And that's not what we want, right? If you focus on efficiency all the time, not knowing whether you are doing the right thing or wrong thing, then we may run into that trap. Then what happens if you do the right thing wrong?
Then you're inefficient.
Not inefficient, you are wrong, right? You made a mistake.
If you're doing the right thing in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you made a mistake, and you typically, if you're smart, you learn from it. Russell is a kind of extremist. He was, only way to learn is by making mistake. And some people agree with it,
I agree.
some people not, but the point is, if you do the right thing wrong, it's not really a total waste of time because there's a learning opportunity, you learn from it, and you correct yourself. So between these two, do the wrong thing right versus do the right thing wrong, which is better?
Right, or do the right thing wrong and the wrong thing right.
People have made the most mistakes,
Yeah.
but they've learned from them.
Most famous one is Thomas Edison. Yeah, 1,000 mistakes, and then, of course, if you could do the right thing right, that would be the best. So the reason I show that is when we look at this car, energy efficient car or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, it's technically a car.
It's got a wheel, it's not floating.
No, I.
Yeah, 3 wheels. Yeah. But in big picture, what's the purpose of automobile? Transportation. Right? So if you want to think about efficient transportation system, car alone will not cut it. You have to think about all the infrastructure. So our company went through several different owners. First we were Rockwell Rocketdyne, then we became Boeing Rocketdyne, and most recently we became Pratt Whitney Rocketdyne. when we were part of Boeing, that meant the other company in Europe. Come on, guys. Airbus announced a jumbo jet, right? And for those who are students of this system thinking, we all kind of clap our hands. Could go for it, Airbus. What was the reason Concorde failed?
Too expensive.
Maybe.
There was a lot of reasons it failed.
Yeah, the main reason. Yeah, there was only one airport in the United States who could accommodate Concorde. Only one, JFK. No other airports. Now, when we looked at this Airbus jumbo jet, we were thinking, how many airports can accommodate that airplane? System thinking. They only think about huge airplane, lots of people at one time, good. But then, you know, how many airports can
Still got to land and take off.
Yeah. And even for training. A lot of people get trained for the sake of getting certifications. Do they actually learn from training? Do they actually apply it? That's another question. So when we try to train our employees on this TRIZ method, very first one we create a training class. A lot of people came, they learned for 2 days, they went back to their old ways. So we said, no more training class, we'll create a workshop so that they have the hands-on exercise. And then after that, when they go back to their office, they apply it. And then if they get stuck, then they call me, hey, you know, I'm doing this and, you know, what was the next step? But they actually apply it. So system thinking is, you need to apply it. So I promised the stories about resource. This is a true story. Russian space scientists were developing this moon landing vehicle. And they know up the moon, everything's so dark, so they can have headlight, right? And back then, this is only means of providing light. So they put this on the vehicle, and they tested the launch load. You know, the heaviest vibration comes from when you take off. And every time they tested it, failed right here, the joint between glass and metal. So literally they spent 6 months, millions of dollars to strengthen that joint. Now, later on they realized what's inside the light bulb.
It's a vacuum.
What's that moon?
You don't need the glass.
The Americans made a similar mistake. You know what this is, right?
It's the pen.
Space pen. There's the story as to how much it costed, and there's the real story. The story is, how much did NASA spend for this space pen to develop this one?
10 million.
1 million. Yeah, the real story
Yeah, but
is
1960s dollars.
I don't know, maybe 20,000 or so. But still a $20,000 pen.
It's not even that
Russians
attractive.
used the research that's already.
Use a pencil.
So what's the purpose, right? What's the right thing to do? So in summary, consider these. You all know 2 brains are better than 1, right? I guess science is the silent response. And then effective innovation from utilizing existing knowledge base. Yeah? And good KM system should create good knowledge base. Just simple, very expensive document management system is not a KM system. the good KM systems should create knowledge base that employees can access to. Outside the box thinking or paradigm shift. Do the right thing, right? And then actually innovation solutions can come out in a few days rather than 6 months. So here's my sales pitch, innovation workshop. So with that, any questions?
We talked a lot about the advantages of having more than one head, a group of people, as well bringing in outside experience. And one of the things that I see a lot with executives as well as human resources and hiring managers is as they're bringing in new people, they're not taking advantage of that to improve their organizations from an innovation standpoint. They tend to say, hey, I want to hire more of the same. I want somebody, if I'm in the medical industry, that's got 10 years of experience in the medical industry. And I, as an executive, having brought people in from automotive, as an example, into industrial, saw huge advantage in bringing in tools that they knew nothing about in that market, like Shannon, as an example. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Do you have any sort of presentation that you could tailor towards executives, hiring managers, to push to them the advantage of opening up their mind to bring in different sorts of people into their organization?
Yeah.
That would be an advantage, I think.
That will go back to my presentation on system thinking, the do the right thing. It's a human behavior is very, I talked about paradigm, right? So we all come with our own paradigms, and it's very difficult to come over that or change that paradigm. And they have to see the paradigm change in action, then they'll change. Like when we first started this KM, we were asking for funding. And senior executives keep saying, hey, Kyo, you're spending so much money, and what's the ROI on this? I keep asking ROI and ROI. Same thing with the innovation process. And I asked them, you know, you push for advanced education. You spend a lot of money on sending employees to get advanced degrees. What's the ROI on that? And they go, oh, they get smarter, they get trained, and they bring all this new way of doing things. I tell them the same thing. So after about 2-3 years, they stop asking me, what's the ROI on my spending? Rather, I give them the cost avoidance metrics, not the ROI metrics. So yeah, I do have something on that if you're interested. Yeah.
I think part of, I remember Amgen is that their moniker used to be, when my wife worked there, you're willing to accept you're taking risk as long as you learn from it, which is odd for the biotech industry.
Yeah.
You think we're very risk adverse. But the question is Apple an example of what you're talking about, or is it just a phenomenon?
It's a combination, like I hope there are no politicians here. When Clinton got into trouble, how was he able to survive that trouble? Not because of his actions, but our economy was booming, right? No one has complained about government. They go, just let him go. It's a combination of all those things. You have to be in the right time, at the right setting, then everything will work out. And somehow Apple was just, and even with iPad and all those things, Samsung is creating much better equipment, but still people go with iPad because its name and because they are the first one who introduced those things, and people tend to kind of admire, hey, iPad, not Samsung.
Well,
Have you used it? The user experience is pretty good.
With the iPad versus a Samsung?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well,
I haven't
but
used
then
it.
you
A
have
friend
the
of mine
but
just
then you have
got.
the HP too, which is even better than both.
You know, it's
That was out of
not-
business, so.
and I would say that it's not strictly the piece of hardware by itself, but it's the applications that are available for it. You have
User experience.
this cloud of applications and programs that it can run, and the iPad has hundreds of thousands that are available to it.
It's about perception.
Where
People think that matters. Or
The
it doesn't. It's very
the HP touchpad had a couple of dozen, and I don't know, Samsung is using Android, so it has quite a few applications available for it as well, and it'll probably have some success. But they're the follower, not the leader, and there's value in that as well.
A friend of mine owns a cell phone business. A lot of people come for all these exotic phones, right? Expensive ones. And we ask them, what do you use your phone for? I call my somebody, I text somebody. Do you download any movies on it? No. Do you text? No, I just call them. But they still want most expensive
The
one.
concept of Y-tech versus high-tech.
High-tech.
Starter buttons on cars.
Yeah.
Why do you need a
Yeah.
starter button other than
Yeah.
it's kind of cool?
Yeah.
I
Any
don't
other?
have one.
Neither do I.
My car's a little bit old.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Kind of thinking of, we're in a risk-averse society. I mean, I get punished for taking risks through litigation and stuff like that. One of the, and I'm kind of thinking about Apple, and though I never worked on any Apple projects in my design career, some of my coworkers had. And one of the things that Apple had was an unyielding requirement of innovation, even though Steve Jobs would break the rule of, he'd tell you it's a dumb idea right off the bat.
Mhm.
And you'd have to be strong enough to go through that. But through everything they did, it was unyielding. You just beat the crap out of it until it was perfect. And I worked with Compaq and HP way back when, and they actually had pretty high quality attitudes, but I saw that erode over the years where they became more and more risk adversive to the point where they stopped innovating and just,
Yeah.
and take that even a step further. When I was at Dell once, and we said, hey, we don't do anything new. We do this. Our motto is second to market, and we're just going to stay there.
Sort of like Microsoft.
Well,
Nowadays.
yeah, I think Microsoft.
No, Microsoft has always been second to market.
Do it wrong and eventually do it right.
They just keep They find somebody does something great, and they pick it up and they keep working at it until they do a good
It's kind of
job.
an observation. I guess there has to be a culture of. I've had many clients over there say, we want to make the next iPad, not necessarily the same product, but that level. But they didn't want to spend any time thinking about it.
Yeah.
You could just pull it out of your hat, and there it is.
So the
There's
culture,
cost.
culture of the organization drives all these. We had a new president, young president, who came in and was, don't be afraid to make a mistake. It's okay, but do not repeat the same mistake. But then it was tough because his senior executives did not support that. They still go, thou shalt not make mistakes. So all employees were kind of. So what I meant by the organization's culture is not just the talk, but the behavior that supports it would drive whether they go one way or the other.
Yeah, how would you tie this into clean tech, and what is the alternative? Dirty tech, or what's just your
Old tech and new tech.
So you all had this big vision before you created CTC. So one of the tools that I did not talk about is called ideal final results. It's looking at the end state of whatever you want to do. So think about CTC's end state, whether it's a possibility or not possibility, but optimum end state. And that will give you the many ways to get there. If you just look at the next step and next step, never get there. So yeah, that's a one direction. And then keep in mind, it's not the content, but it's a process that I want to introduce you. So we could apply these different ways to think to help CTC to grow.
I was just going to take it, especially with the how versus what.
Right.
I like that. That was really, I think, apropos for what clean, in my mind, what clean tech is and where it's going, and why it's important is the what as opposed to the how.
Right. And another way to think about this is if we put too much focus on green energy, because to us, right now, green energy is a clean technology. But if we put too much focus on green energy itself way too much, then we lose the concept of the original intention of clean technology. Because green and clean are not really same. They kind of support, but they are not same. So what I want to say is, don't lose the sight of your original intention. The clean technology is what you're after, not green energy.
Yeah. Because just the opposite of that is, for instance, what like the tar sands up in Canada. I've filmed a documentary up there this winter, and it's it's just amazing. They're very good at getting the oil out.
Yeah.
Amazing. They're very efficient. But is it good? Is it
right?
Is it right?
Right. Yeah.
They're poisoning the lakes and the rivers. It's an incredible scene up there.
Yeah, similar. I hate to pick on Japan. I have real good friends there, and I do business with them as well. But the fact that they dump everything into ocean, so it's good for the people who live on land. But think about the effects that will come many years from now, right? And ocean is just uncontrollable, and it's just cannot believe they are actually doing that. It's kind of fresh on my mind because I just went to Eastern Europe, visited Ukraine, Chernobyl, right? You all remember that? So I went to museum and saw all those things, and the nuclear thing is kind of fresh on my mind. Any other questions? So I want to make one comment about this one. I used this as my last slide 3 years ago at one of these conferences. And then a couple months later, one of the participants sent me an email. Kyo, I enjoyed your talk at this conference very much. And I also remember your last slide. And I have a couple of US Open tickets. Would you like to go? So ever since then, I use this as my last slide. So if you got any couple of US Open tickets,
keep me in mind.
Okay, thank you very much.